Now, if there's anything that I hate even more than inspirational quotes on Facebook or Instagram, it has to be this body positivity bullshit, pseudo positive bullshit that they come up with on, Facebook posts and shit like that. First biggest sin, Facebook is still a thing. End it, please, Mark. Secondly, it has to do to the fact that they try to teach an even more superficial idea that all of your worth has to rely on looks. You have to be hot. So your fucked up chest, for example, has to be hot. No. Now, before you think I'm trying to be a negative asshole here and say that, any flat-chested woman, it looks bad. That's not the point. The point is that this body positivity relies on creating a delusion rather than focusing on feeling comfortable with your fucked up body. Because this is the reality, people. Not everyone is born beautiful. But here's another newsflash. You don't have to be beautiful. You don't have to have a good body. You don't have to have good tits. You don't have to have good abs. Whatever it is, you don't need it. You don't have to have it. Looking at your own body and keep lying to yourself, it's not healthy in any extent of this concept. Sometimes even people face to face will say this shit. They will lie to their friends and say like, "Oh, you look good." I appreciate the friend that comes to my face and says, "Bro, you look like shit." Because I know if the situation ever arises again and my friend actually says, "Holy shit, man, you look I can't say that word, man. Fresh and fit really ruined it for me. But I don't know, what did the kids say? Fly? I don't know. If your friend gives you a thumbs up, which is the male equivalent to great approval, then I'll believe you. Because I know when you're put to the test, you're going to be the most honest person that I know. And some days I'll look like shit. Some days I'll look better. In overall, I'm capped, okay? I have a maximum. But that maximum should be comfortable to you. You should realize that you can't go above that. It's beyond your control, unless you truly can, build some muscle or change something. But even with that, if you're comfortable with this, that's it. You don't have to convince yourself of anything. You don't have to prove anything to anyone, let alone yourself. But you don't have to lie to people. I know you'll be fucking lying when you tell me like, "Oh, you're beautiful." But aren't you saying that shit to everyone?
Oh, but I really mean it with you.
Like, get the fuck out of here, bitch. Creating a delusion does not increase your confidence. If you tell people just be happy when they're depressed as fuck, they're not going to be happy all of a sudden. That's not how it works. So instead of trying to lie to people to lie to themselves, how about you realize like, "Oh shit, you don't have to be good at everything." That's an even better message. No one is perfect. But also, there isn't anyone on this world that is bad at everything. Except Amber Heard. Terrible human being, even worse actor. I don't know how that comes up with, how she came up with that shit, but But the biggest irony about all this is that people will not get better just because you tell them like, "Oh, you have to realize this is hot." No. Instead of that, teach them a healthy mentality. That, yeah, sure, maybe that's not your best trait. But can you make people fucking laugh? Do you amuse people?
I'm funny how? I mean, funny like I'm a clown, I amuse you? What the fuck is so funny about me?
Are you a clown? I'm sorry, I was going to the Goodfellas route there. Can you be charming? I mean, charming is something that you can work with. That's something that you can feel pride in because that's something that you directly change about you. Sometimes you are born with a body and that's it. But when people try to convince this bullshit idea that everyone is beautiful, which doesn't make any sense now, does it? If the world was all good, for example, there would be no evil. But then good wouldn't exist either. It's the natural order of things. It is what it is. It's neutral. It wouldn't exist a distinction between good and evil. So, is everyone beautiful? Who is ugly? Where do we pick up the contrast? Who are we comparing ourselves to? It feels like I'm explaining this to a 9-year-old, but that's the easiest and most basic way of explaining this. That not everyone can be beautiful, otherwise the world loses the significance. But this one, for example, I know the message on this one is to say, there's some Photoshop pictures there that you can't tell yourself like that's how she looks. I'm not going to go against that message too badly, let's say too deeply out there, because I agree that when you see those Kim Kardashians and all that gang, right? The Silicon Valley gang, that's reality. I don't disagree with that. But then there's also this exaggeration, right? That when you have a body like this, that has to be Photoshop. And the reality is, ladies and men, by the way, it's totally doable sometimes. Now, sure, if the bitch looks like Betty Boop or whatever, yeah, sure, I give you a point. But there's a lot of women there that work their bodies and they achieve that. That's not Photoshop. There's also another mentality that really annoys me, is people trying to convince that you can't work, that's not realistic, even though there's a real person with that real body. And again, this has nothing to do with just simply women. I'm a guy, right? When I see Chris Hemsworth, I mean, shit, that dude is shaped like a god. What do you want me to say? Now, I know that in those movies, CGI usually happens, but it's Marvel. I mean, they don't have really good CGI. But then again, this man does not need CGI or Photoshop or whatever the fuck. He has a body that most likely in my lifetime, or even if you give me 2 lifetimes, I would still not get it. And that's fine. That's because a choice was made that I don't want to pursue that. But I know it's possible. So I really don't like this message of like, oh, you know, sometimes you should look at a real body that looks really good and use that as a goal. Why is that? That's actually healthy. It goes into the fields of competition, but not for the other people, is for you. Love your smile. How about not? All right, because that smile right there, that's the kind of smile that needs braces. Okay, go to the fucking doctor, lady. But there's a bunch of these. We are all worthy. Because of your looks, really, that's the message that you want to put out. People, you don't have to be beautiful, you don't have to be stunning, nor even slightly pretty. Sometimes you look like dog shit, like me, okay? That's what true self-confidence is. Realizing that you have all chances stacked against you. And even with all that, with your terrible hand of cards, you can actually rely on your qualities instead of trying to convince yourself that your flaws are something good now. Like, no, it's a flaw. It is what it is. Try to work it or realize that shit and work something else. Okay, so that you can improve yourself and compensate for the things that weren't given to you. Because this will always fall to people. Like, sometimes people are just not funny, for example. Like, are you also telling, the same way that you're telling everyone is beautiful, are you also telling that everyone is funny? Really?
How the fuck am I funny?
Why do we have this special, I guess, particular factor about everyone being beautiful, but all of a sudden when it comes to being funny, to being shy or extroverted, all of a sudden we have all these different flaws and qualities? That's a little bit weird, isn't it? But then again, this whole idea that, you know, these messages are good, you know, that you need to accept your body, yada, yada, yada. This does the complete fucking opposite. This just damages people even more. In the end, people's self-confidence is understanding that you're ugly as fuck. But if you get a girlfriend or a boyfriend or someone to love you, it's most likely because you worked something in your favor. You got funnier, all right? You worked out at a gym a little bit. Or maybe you just created a YouTube channel that increases your attractiveness to 1,000. But yes, my message being, don't lie to yourself. Rather understand yourself. No. I was so disappointed as soon as I said it, dude. I'm sorry about that one. That was holy shit. But my message is, being realistic isn't the same thing as being a pessimist. You realizing that you don't have some good abs or whatever, it's just an objective observation. That doesn't make you worse, it doesn't make you better. It will be neutral unless you let that affect you, either positively if you get cocky or whatever, or negatively if you get depressed by the fact that you just weren't born with the genes. It doesn't fucking matter.